Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartia and welcome to TFI Insights, a show where we deep dive into emerging technologies. And today we have with us Dmitry Petrov, co-founder and CEO of Iterative.ai. Dmitry, it's great to have you on the show.
Oh, happy to be on the show.
Since you are one of the co-founders, I would love to know the history and the story of the company as well.
I worked at academia more than 10 years ago. I led a research lab, and then I joined Microsoft. I moved to US to Microsoft headquarters, and I became a data scientist at Bing. In the Bing, I have seen how people organize machine learning process. I found that machine learning process is very different from software engineering, and it needs a new set of tools to support the process, the workflow. And they have built a kind of AI platform, if you wish, to support this process. And I was surprised at how new it is. Very new experience specifically for machine learning, specifically for data project. And I was start thinking like, all right, this works inside Microsoft, but how should it work outside? How it should work for different company who might have a little bit different machine learning process. And then I start thinking, what should we change to make a tool available, AI tool, AI platform available for people? My hypothesis was the tool set needs to be open source. And also, I don't believe in kind of like AI platform, if you wish. I believe in the ecosystem of the tool when you can like chain them together and work on your ML projects. And the last, and probably the most important part here is machine learning engineers. They're still engineers. They're very different, but they're still engineers, and they still write code. They still use version control system, collaboration tools. And my wish was I'd like to create a kind of platform capabilities on top of these software engineering tools. And this is how the project started.
You also mentioned that you kind of do not like the platform approach. It's just, you bring all the tools together, they can use. But at the same time, when we do look at it, even the AI, ML, all the technology that are there, frameworks, it at times become very complex, very complicated. Sometimes some may prefer a platform approach where you integrate all those technologies together so that but is a bit different in this data scientist and AI ML space from the rest of the world, or this is the approach you think is better?
I think, first of all, you are right, because people like to have kind of end-to-end process, right? And the tool needs to support your workflow from beginning to the end. So yeah, that's what people need. However, the process is a bit different. And if you give them like one platform, you kind of defining one process, maybe like 2 or 3, but in reality, there are like 20, 30 different processes. And this is why I more believe on ecosystem, when you can have a set of tools, you can chain them together, adjust a bit, and then build your entire process. The same work in software engineering, right? You can choose version control system, code quality control system, like coverage, calculate coverage. You can use your own CI/CD, set up it in a proper way, set up deployment, and so far and so on. A lot of different pieces and a lot of flexibility how to connect the pieces and how to set up. I believe this is missing part in ML in AI platforms.
You gave a good overview of the problem that you saw in the space and then you're trying to solve, but I want to go a step further and understand how does that solution look like, either as a product that you have created, services you have built, and then we will also talk about the engagement with open source community. But let's start with how does your offering look like?
First of all, when we start working on this kind of AI ecosystem, if you wish, we found that you cannot build any AI capabilities without proper data management. By data management, I mean how you move data around, how you version data, and how you version models. So this is it has to be fundamental part of any AI platform. And we have built DVC, data version control. DVC was built on top of Git. It's just kind of an extension of Git. It does not replace Git. You're still using having your Git experience, but it helps you to manage data. because Git cannot manage data, right? If you have like 1 gigabyte file or maybe 1 terabyte directory with images, Git doesn't work. So DVC helps you to connect your code, data with your cloud storages. So DVC works directly with S3, Azure, and so far and so on. The same with model. In addition to data, you can have like metrics attached to the data, to the model, and have some basic navigation on Git, like, hey, where is my best model? Show me like plot in my current model with my production model. What is the difference? So this kind of question DVC can answer and manage the data set. And also it moves data around. So with DVC, you can add data on your laptop, for example, push data to the cloud, and then on your training machine in the cloud, you will be able to get data, train, save models, and kind of work version all the pieces. So this is the DVC part.
Why do we need versions of data? Number one. Number two is, if you do have these versions of data, how do you bring them to your system? So can you also, is there something also called the continuous machine learning, just the way we see continuous integration and continuous delivery? So can you talk about these two aspects as well?
Data versioning is a bit different compared to code versioning for a variety of reasons. First of all, why do we need data versioning? You need to connect your data, your code, and your models just to provenance to make sure that this model was built with this particular version of data. This is a critical part, especially when your data evolves. In academia settings, so I came from academia, right? It was not a problem because data is not usually like evolving fast. However, in real life, data is evolving, and you need to have a connection between code, data, and the model. So this is why versioning is critical. Second, in data world, you usually have tons of data, tons of versions of data, and you don't necessarily need to keep like everything. While in software engineering, you keep every single change of your code just because you can do this. In data world, sometimes you cannot do. So you need to kind of a mechanism of garbage collector, if you wish, to clean up your data. So this is like another a crucial part of the data versioning. And third is how you move data around. When you work with a large data set, it's a huge pain to manage this data. And there are a lot of tricks how you can improve this experience. And DVC does this kind of data optimization. While version control, code version control system do not care about this because your code is usually very small. So it's about we adjust the version control system to the data project workflow.
Can you also explain what is continuous machine learning, or CML?
CML is our second project. We launched the project around 6-7 months ago, and it's growing really, really well. It does very simple thing. When DVC is extension for Git, right? And CML, continuous machine learning, is an extension for your CI/CD systems. Today we support 3 systems: GitHub Actions, GitLab CI/CD, and the Bitbucket CI/CD system. With CML, you can solve 2 problems. First, you can get data-driven report to your pull request. When you can say, hey, I built this model, this is result of my test, and you can show plots, metrics, and nice-looking images right on the pull request. So this is people really like this functionality. And second piece, which is probably even more important piece, CML helps you to orchestrate resources. It helps you to train your resources in a cloud instead of running your CI/CD on the usual runner, right? Which usually doesn't have enough memory or GPUs. You can specify that I need Azure machine with a GPU with this amount of memory and this volume, and I'd like to move my training to Azure. So this is what CML solves.
Now let's talk about who should care about either DVC and CML and why.
Our usual user is ML researcher who builds model, or ML engineer who maybe like builds model or tunes model and does care about the processes. When a team need DVC, first of all, when you work in a team. So version control, CI/CD, those are collaboration tools. Sometimes you might not need them when you work kind of alone. But in a team, it's really hard to survive without those technologies, without those systems. And DVC brings this experience, CI/CD experience. It brings version control experience to your team. And also, in many cases, DVC is a connection between the research team, which does modeling, and production teams, which deploys model. Usually, researchers start using DVC because they see kind of more value. But then they say, why don't you use DVC to kind of as a source for deployment? And then DevOps team start using DVC.
In the beginning, when we started talking about the history and story of the company, you mentioned, open source was really critical in the AI/ML space. And if we do look at AI/ML space, a lot of frameworks, whether it's from Microsoft or Google or Amazon, they are open source. The frameworks are open source. A lot of models are also open source. But if you look at platforms like SageMaker or Azure ML Engineer, they are still proprietary. So can you talk about while the frameworks democratize, machine learning and AI, make it more accessible to data scientists. Otherwise, it was very expensive to get access to this technology. But these proprietary platforms still create a lot of challenges, whether it's vendor lock or other things. So talk about how do you compete with them, and how do you ensure that the whole AI/ML stack is democratized and not, going back to the whole proprietary way of doing things?
I think there are two questions. One question is why open source, and second question, how about the other platforms that are not open source today? So first of all, why open source? I think this usually when one area kind of arises, it usually doesn't start with open source. Usually companies starting doing some stuff, and like all these like huge giant companies, usually like a few years ahead of the rest of the industry, they have to invent something. They create like proprietary solution, and then eventually it become open source and available for everyone. I believe in machine learning frameworks have already reached this point when the entire tool set is open sourced. If you're talking about algorithms, if you're talking about data processing, different tools. However, on the collaboration side, we are not there yet. Most of the platforms are not open source yet, and today it's a good time to build this kind of open source standard, if you wish, for the AI platforms. So this is my answer for the first question, why open source? The second question, how about other ML platform? How about SageMaker, right, from AWS? How about Azure ML Studio? From some point of view, yes, we are doing kind of the same. We are solving the same set of problems, but we are doing this in a different way. We are cloud agnostic, and we can, with our tools, you can work in even multi-cloud environment. Sometimes I describe the DVC to people as a Terraform for data. So this is kind of a way how you orchestrate your cloud resources. This is the way how you codify your cloud resources and then version. This is exactly how DVC works. It's with CML, it's pretty much the same. It codifies your environment, not data, but environment, how you train models, how you test models. So first of all, we are cloud agnostic, one difference. And second difference, we start with development experience. We are saying, we are using Git as a foundation. We have connection with CI/CD systems, and we are extending GitHub, GitLab capabilities. So this is our second big difference from any other AI platforms.
And what about customers who are already on those proprietary, platform, whether it's SageMaker or Azure ML? can they easily migrate or move to your data version control or CML, or is there is some kind of challenges there, or should they move to your solutions?
Uh, it's a good question. We are still figuring this out, and we are having discussion with some of the cloud vendors regarding this question. Like, does it make sense to integrate DVC in some of their scenarios? From one side, yeah, I see like a lot of value from this integration, and I hope we can come up with some types of nice integrations.
Perfect. Can you also talk about what kind of roadmap do you have for this year? What are you planning for this year?
We are releasing DVC 2.0 very soon, like literally like next week. And DVC 2.0, it's mostly about deep learning. In the previous versions of DVC, we did a really good job on managing data, on managing resources and pipelines, which is kind of more NLP scenarios in more kind of traditional machine learning. But now we are incorporating deep learning functionality, model checkpoints, ML experiments, kind of lightweight experiments, and this has a kind of a deep learning flavor. So this is a big part for DVC. The next release is going to be about more data optimization. So we are preparing for a big change in DVC in terms of like how we optimize our data sets and how do we work with labels and label management in DVC.
Dmitry, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about DVC, CML, and I look forward to talk to you again because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of big announcements coming from the company. So thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.